There's power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. It all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood, with strikes on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manns, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Statement. This is the April 22nd, 2024 edition of the show. And I believe it's the fourth one we've done since the hospital has reopened with its 18 beds.
Yeah.
And the April 4th Coalition mission statement is: we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations to ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23, and because we have Rachel, we have 4 people to read the lines this time. So here we go, Dick.
I'll start with number 1. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment.
Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration. It's Liz's favorite word. Ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
Michael.
Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
Okay, and as tradition, we give a thank you to Michael Putnam, who is the program director of WMNB LP 107.1, for airing the audio portions of our show on Friday at 6 p.m. and any other time that he can fit it in the schedule. And a big thank you to the staff at Northern Berkshire Community Television Corporation, Joanne Holba, Nicole A. Brown, and David Fabiano, whose, without their help, we could not produce this show. So we are very grateful to them. And Dick, you always like to tell us what we're doing on the show, so here we go.
Well, first of all, we put a new sign up behind us. It's "Poverty is the enemy."
Definitely is.
We're trying it out to see if we want to use that as our background or not, but I think that definitely,
apropos.
that is the problem.
That is the problem everywhere.
All the arguments that everybody's having and being angry with everybody, but if we all just looked and kept our eye on eliminating poverty, I think a lot of the anger,
certainly the tension,
disruption,
and stress would go away.
Yeah. That should be our goal. But we have some good news on that road to eliminating poverty. It just came out. We have a couple videos that we're going to show. The first one is an ABC News report out of Tennessee. And there's a new union that was voted for in Tennessee. So let's hear the news report.
The groundbreaking vote overnight. Workers at Volkswagen in Tennessee giving a thumbs up to join the United Auto Workers, a first for the union outside of Detroit. ABC's Morgan Norwood has the details. Morgan, this is a big deal.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning to you, Janae. It's a seismic victory for the United Auto Workers Union in the South. And for Volkswagen workers, this could mean better pay and benefits down the line, right? But for now, this win is a part of a larger push to organize 13 automakers across the country. Overnight, employees at Volkswagen's factory in Tennessee overwhelmingly voting to join the United Auto Workers Union, marking the first non-union factory in the South to organize.
The people have spoken.
Nearly 3/4 of workers voting to join.
It's the greatest feeling that I felt like in 13 years.
The victory coming after 2 failed attempts, one in 2019, the other in 2014.
Workers, the people that do the job, build the cars, our voices need to be heard, and we need to be treated fairly.
The vote, a successful test of the United Auto Workers' new push to organize non-union factories.
To the other elected officials who are afraid of unions, I just want to say, don't be afraid of people power. Don't be afraid of people coming together to say that we should be treated as human beings. That's what a union ensures.
UAW's President Shawn Fain celebrating the win, but warning the battle is far from over.
The real fight begins now.
The real fight is getting your fair share. The real fight is the fight for our union contract.
Last fall, UAW workers in Detroit launched a series of strikes against the big three automakers, President Biden even showing support at the picket line. The strikes ending with generous new contract for union workers, increasing wages by a third.
Workers are fed up in this country. They're fed up with being left behind. And obviously, you know, with our win in Big Three bargaining, I think that really motivated a lot of workers to realize there's better for them.
Now, in a statement, Volkswagen thanking its Chattanooga workers for voting, saying they're awaiting certification of those results. Workers at Mercedes factories in Alabama, well, they're up next and will vote on UAW representation in May. Guys?
Yeah, it could really make such a difference. All right. Thank you so much, Morgan.
Wow.
Well, that is big. It's huge.
It's huge, and it's huge because Volkswagen is a foreign company. And it's also huge because we all saw so many jobs out of workers going to the South, which means workers across the nation are understanding what they have been deprived of and fighting back.
Yeah, and it's the only Volkswagen factory in the world that's not represented by a union.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't.
It's the only one.
The only one.
So we have another video that goes a little bit more in depth. It's from a more perfect union. So let's show that. I really enjoyed it. It's about 7 minutes long.
Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee just won their union with the UAW.
I mean, this is going to be in history books down the road. This is huge, forever huge.
We understand that the world's watching us. You know, there's a labor movement in this country. You know, we're poised to be the first domino of many to fall.
I think it's a great push for the entire South, and people will follow suit.
We said everywhere around the world has a union, except here. We do not want to go down in history on that, not on our watch.
This win is historic. We haven't seen workers at a non-union automaker successfully unionize in decades. Not to mention, we're in the South. Up until now, corporations and the politicians that they've bought around here have kept wages low, regulations loose, and unions out. This win is a direct blow to how the South has done business for years. Getting here didn't happen overnight. There were many failures along the way, but without a doubt, this is new era territory. So we spent a week down here talking with the workers who built this movement about how they pulled it off and what they hope comes next.
From the very beginning, it was clear that we were doing something that was going to be hard.
The word union was spoken in whispers and dark corners at first when I started, you know, and it took off like wildfire.
Can you tell us the condensed version of how we got to this moment today?
So this is our fourth vote, first one in 2014.
There wasn't really a whole lot of energy back then, at least not from where I was standing in the plant.
So why is it a whole lot different this time around? I mean,
Well, let's be honest. I mean, support for unions are really high. I think people have seen the middle class and working class get squeezed.
But I realize I'm working class. I simply want to be able to put my 40 hours a week in, have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month, and have time to enjoy my family. You know, that's really what it's all about.
To me, it feels like, personally, the whole world wants us to unionize. People recognize for the first time in a long time, on a mass scale, there's got to be some changes. And some of the power and stuff that's gone to the corporate world needs to come back to us little guys.
Here in Chattanooga, when they was able to look at the big three and see how they went, that gave them, you know, that strength and say, oh, they did it and they had that big win. Let's try it again here.
What just happened with these record negotiations and contracts, what Shawn Fain and them just did, is huge for everybody. It's huge for what's going on.
That victory, that just pushed a lot of people to just say, hey, you know, I want the same things that these people have up north, or if better for my family.
And you couldn't have written a better symphony for success than that. It was just instantaneous. As soon as the news broke that those record contracts happened, the floodgates just opened.
When word kind of got around the plant and cards started getting signed, it felt like a tidal wave of just like somebody had lit a match in your box.
What's different now is that people have had those losses and they have learned from those losses, and those losses have become lessons, and they're not giving up.
I think by and large, a lot of the misinformation and the fear mongering that came from those past anti-campaigns, it's not working this time. We know better. You know,
the anti-union people are just so much weaker this time around. People are starting to listen. People are starting to hear. People are starting to get this news back and do their own research and change their mind. Like, I've had anti-union people, like, I didn't flip them, I didn't talk to them and they changed their mind. They changed their mind. Nothing's more humbling to me than that. It's like, I feel like I've just went around talking to people and it was in them all along, you know?
I think also what is different now, the community has come together and seeing that, you know, it's not, for me, I've never worked at Volkswagen, but because I know people and I'm in love with the people, what affects you affects me.
Why was it important for community leaders like yourself to be vocal in speaking out in favor of the union up at Volkswagen?
A lot of people that are here in my congregation, because of Jim Crow laws, they weren't able to be a part of unions, or their family members weren't able to be a part of unions. And so for me personally, I was able to see my paternal grandfather, Feldman Williams. He didn't have a voice, and he didn't have an organization or a union behind him to advocate on his behalf when he was sick. And so we wanted to show our support of saying, yes, this can happen in our lifetime, and the time is now.
Soon my time will be over with, and it'll be their time. And hopefully what we do here today will trickle down to the next generation and the next generation, and they'll take that power and they'll use it to their advantage.
There are so many things in this society that we see as this is the best we can do. And I think people should start challenging that narrative. And hopefully, I hope that this sends that message.
You know, genuine hope is really hard to come by, but every now and then you meet a group of people who are hell-bent on building the kind of power that can really change things, no matter how badly corporations or their politicians want them to stay the same. And you know it when you see it. I first saw it in Detroit. I saw it again here in Chattanooga. And if this momentum that workers are building across the country continues, we'll see it in Alabama and Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina. It'll go as far as people take it.
I hope if the Mercedes people see me talking right now, we know they're going to win theirs too. And Chattanooga is rooting for them big time.
Shawn Fain, you know, he says, you know, next time these contracts come up, it's not going to be the Big 3. It's going to be the Big 12.
If we can negotiate a contract, if we can blaze the trail, it's going to show them that all these lies they've been told are what they are, lies. They're just trying to scare you. They're just trying to exploit you. I don't care how good your workplace is. You should be unionized. You should have protections. You should have representation.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Hi, thanks for watching our video. If you like this story and you want more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have stories that you want us to investigate, drop them in the comments below.
Oh.
I know we grew up in the generation where unions were already established, and we hadn't seen it from the ground root up. This is the first time I've seen ground root up organizing in this way. I mean, I've read about it in a couple of places in New England, but for it to happen in the South, hopefully it spreads like the wildfire they want, because that would level the playing field. Auto companies aren't going to want to move to the South if they have to pay the same as they have to pay. It will keep jobs where they are rather than have companies moving them, if you can get that level playing field across the country.
I agree with you. But I see a couple of things. This segues right into a livable wage. This also, you always hear me say, talking locally, how Sprague's fought unions, Mass MoCA fought unions, and they've had to strike twice in your local community. These are lifetime commitments. I must be tired of saying this, or people hearing saying, you cannot, you win a battle, and then you hold on to see if the next battle's going to come. But I think all of us who care about unions could probably agree that this is part of it, But the other parts, what you're talking about with poverty, the steps are for livable wage, and this is a huge, huge victory. It's fantastic.
And I think that just the demonstration of them organizing, it's a good segue into our next topic, because right here in North Adams, there's a lot of issues also with the cost of housing and across the country. And I just want to show 2 videos right away. One is from 60 Minutes, where they talk about the housing crisis and what's gone on. I think it's probably a year old. And then there's another one that's from Denver. And
my former home?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm sorry, New Haven, Connecticut. And if we have time, we'll do the one for Denver. But let's do the 60-minute one on housing and see this.
It's pretty much universally true. Rents are going up all around the country, but it's even more severe in migration destinations like the Sun Belt of the country, Austin, Phoenix, Florida. A lot of people are moving there, and there's just more demand for rents.
Daryl Fairweather is the chief economist at Redfin, a nationwide real estate brokerage firm that pulls together real-time statistics on both the sales and rental markets. For example, their numbers show that rents increased 31% in Jacksonville last year, 40% in Austin, Texas.
What's causing this?
We are not building enough housing for everybody who needs a place to live. We built fewer homes in the 2010s than in any decade going back to the 1960s. And at the same time, millennials are the biggest generation, and they're entering into home buying age. Millennials aren't living in their parents' basement anymore or shacking up with roommates. They want a place of their own. And we didn't build any housing for them in the last decade because we are still so traumatized by the last housing crisis. We didn't put any investment into housing.
In the economic crisis of 2008 and 9, construction of new housing came to a grinding halt. But even when the economy recovered, home construction didn't.
So how big is the rental shortage in the United States?
The government has estimated that we are short about 4 million homes in this country, and that number is likely growing, especially since the pandemic.
4 million, shy.
Yes. That's the hole that we're in that we need to build ourselves out of.
That number, 4 million, is that mainly in the South and Southwest, or does that include New York City and San Francisco?
That's the entire country.
With something as essential as housing in such short supply, you'd have to figure that Wall Street would see an opportunity, buying modest single-family houses, the kind you'd see on any middle-class suburban street, and then renting them out.
In places like Jacksonville, Atlanta, Charlotte, investors are buying almost 30% of the homes that are available for regular home buyers.
Brent and Sarah, tenants left 16 eviction notices on the doors of the offices of Ocean Management to represent the 16 eviction notices that were given to renters earlier this month. Tenants are now fighting back, though, both in court and out on the streets. After 6 years of living at her Blake Street apartment in New Haven, Jessica Stamp was ordered to leave by September 1st.
I've always paid my rent on time. I helped them to clean up the property by getting the city to come in and force them to clean it up. And now they can attract people for their $1,900 apartments.
She and 15 of her neighbors received a notice to quit on their doors earlier this month, letting them know their lease would not be renewed, a decision the tenants union believes is retaliatory. The union had been in negotiations with Ocean Management over rent increases, lease terms, timely repairs, and more.
We want to get back to negotiating as soon as possible. That's our #1 goal. This is not good for anyone, what's happening right now. But what we need from them is to withdraw those notices to quit and to promise us in writing they're not going to do it again.
The company did not return requests for comment, but in a statement last week said, "We met in good faith 3 times with the representatives in an attempt to accommodate and even press our intention to make exceptions in some cases with specific financial needs." Wednesday, the union held its second rally since receiving the eviction notices, receiving a large show of support from other tenants, community organizations, and local leaders.
What we're seeing here in New Haven is the kind of thing that happens economically in many places
when there is excessive consolidation. We are seeing larger and larger numbers of units owned by fewer and fewer numbers of landlords.
This week, the tenants union also filed an injunction in court to try to stop the evictions, but instead was given a hearing date of September 12th.
The judge could have had the opportunity to intervene and say the landlord does not have the ability to move forward with this at all.
Also today, another tenants union made up of people who live in another property owned by Ocean Management also filed for recognition from the city. New Haven is the first in the state to legally recognize tenants unions. Live in New Haven, Gabby Molina, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
Yeah, so they organized the tenant union to fight. And I think that's something that we have to think about here in North Adams, because we have plenty of instances where the consolidation, like that politician in New Haven talked about, that consolidation of ownership. You know, there's a shortage of housing, and people on Wall Street are seeing that this is a good investment, you know, and they're driving the prices up.
Of course.
So, I mean, I had a friend just notified, he's lived in his house all his life as a renter, and all of a sudden they're going to double or more his rent. There's instances where someone, $300, they didn't do a single thing to help them, but they're raising their rent by $300 a month. I saw another lady lived on my mail route, lived on Washington Avenue. How are you doing? Terrible. They raised my rent by $500 a month. I got to move. You know, it's awful. You have some.
Well, we're going to get real personal here. I'm going to say this, is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a national system by design. And when they talk about affordable housing, I have no idea what they're talking about. And when you talk about, oh, we're behind on single-family homes, we don't need single-family homes. We need a housing system, a housing program that is multifaceted. And even as a candidate for mayor in 2017, you have to look at what gentrification is doing in towns, and you could use North Adams as an example. When people are buying up places. I myself personally, and I don't know if your audience knows this, I come from one of the wealthiest families in the Commonwealth. My grandmother's house is now Lewison House, where they are solving a solution for homeless families living there, having housing. The house I grew up in is condemned. The house I moved back to, because of discrimination against women, I did not have enough money and lost that house. I also, because I spoke up for elderly people and disabled people, I was threatened with eviction at Village East in North Adams. I no longer live in North Adams because I had to leave. And the threats, if you speak up, the retaliation is huge. I'm strong enough to deal with it, but it took a lot out of me. So those are just some of the things. And if this can happen to somebody, you know, and I'm using myself as an example, who worked my whole life, and part of the problem is the income inequality and everything you're talking about. Poverty is the enemy, it's the problem, and as my high school English teacher said, the accent is on the wrong syllable. And you have entrenched in the political field. Even when I went for help, I couldn't get help with the police, I couldn't get help with the health department, I couldn't get help from the mayor in North Adams. HUD, I filed a complaint with HUD, still pending. Nobody would deal with it. Mass Commission Against Discrimination, couldn't take it because I had a complaint pending with HUD. HUD became the problem. These are multifaceted.
So they sort of made it you as the individual. But if we had a tenant,
but me as the individual, if it can happen to me.
No, but what I'm saying is they converted this problem to you. You're the problem.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if we had a tenants union
Yep.
that would represent all the people that are renting in North Adams, approach the city council for some strict regulations on rent controls, if we could get that. I mean, and also increase the number of, I look back to one of my heroes here in North Adams is Carol Hess. Her husband was a professor at the college, and she served on the school committee in North Adams. And she wanted to build a new high school in the early 60s, and she wanted to build it up on Trudeau's farm. And they said, oh, no, we can't have a high school way out of town like that up on that farm. So, I mean, she had like 65% of the building paid for. She had everything in line, but the city didn't want it. They wanted to keep the high school downtown. So she became part of the North Adams Housing Now organization, and she got that Mohawk Forest built.
Yeah.
And she got Brickyard Terrace built. Big, where would we be without those two housing projects?
Yeah.
And so we need to find land, just like Carol Hess did, and we used to, to put some appropriate housing for low-income people, or make affordable housing, raise people's wages, make it so they can work 40 hours, like the man said in the video earlier.
Or 35.
Or
35, yeah,
even
but
better.
just enjoy the time with their family.
But you also have, coming from the other side, those people who have the money that are buying up these housing places and then making them private rental things. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And the elderly, the disabled, the vulnerable, nobody in the United States should be homeless.
No.
It is frightening. We have more homeless, I think, now than we've ever had in our history.
Right, and the Supreme Court now is going to address the ruling, because in one, I can't remember what city it was, but they made it illegal to have a tent or a sleeping bag in an area because the city declared that you couldn't camp there. They were saying limiting camping, but these people are homeless. They have no place to go. So the Supreme Court is going to hear this case because they said there was no room in the homeless shelters, and they have to sleep on the street, but they're going to make it illegal for them to sleep there.
On the street, yeah.
So where do they go? We have to address this problem.
Right.
Oh, I know a woman with 3 children who lived in her car for a year.
Yeah.
This is in Massachusetts. So
It's
a global problem, and it's not easily resolved. It needs multi-pronged thinking. And good luck with that with the current state of legislation.
Right, but what we have to, just like that union, they tried in 2014, they didn't succeed in
No, you have to
Tennessee.
keep going at it because it's the only way. If you don't put the spotlight on,
Right. I think
it's not going to happen.
Everybody, we blame an individual, or we all get behind, oh, this individual we need to find housing for this individual. But it's not just one person.
Yeah.
It's a whole community of people. It's an underclass.
But you have to start with one and one and one and
Yeah.
one together.
Right.
If you say it's a whole class, nobody's going to solve it for a whole class. You have to build on one to one to one to one.
Right.
That's what
Well,
I
that's-
believe.
Well, I was very active in Habitat for Humanity, and their goal was to eliminate poverty housing from the face of the earth.
President
house at a
Jimmy
time.
Carter and First Lady Rosalind Carter and what they did. And we now need a habitat for rehabilitation. All these places that can be rehabilitated. Now, it could just,
Yeah, but I know, there's simple things like with that earned income tax credit, when they give people with families and children, they give them more money, put more money in people's hands, they'll know what to do with it. You just don't, but we're working for the people, and we're asking power to the people.
Yes, power to the people.
It's
Thank you.
Oh, we're not done yet. You got 22 seconds. Keep the debate going.
Keep the
Well, I wanted to hear from Michael. I haven't heard anything from. Did you ever have any history with tenant organizations?
Yeah, we marched on Washington for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely did. And
Well, Michael also had to fight for his home in land court. So there's another example. We can continue this conversation next week.
Thank you.
Power to the people.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave doesn't worry.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. The strikes of the bosses we must fight for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. Wars have always been the bosses' wives.